So we'll call to order the Halifax Board of Selectmen meeting Wednesday, June 8th, 2022 at 7:30. This meeting is being taped by Area 58, and we'll start with the pledge.
Yeah, gotcha. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, another big agenda tonight, but do we have a motion to approve the agenda as written?
I will make a motion to approve the agenda for June 8th, 2022 as written.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So we should start by discussing the candidates for starter town minister and interviews. Do we have any thoughts, feeling? Have you heard any feedback from the towns, people, anything of that nature?
I have not heard much feedback aside from a lot of people have said they wish that we had applicants that had more experience as town administrator.
Yes.
But I've reminded them that the candidate pool is fairly dry. And I think at this point it's more crucial to get someone in place that is willing to steer the ship, so to speak, than it is to keep kicking that can along the road. That's really been the only feedback I've gotten from the general public.
Bernie, we didn't reopen the process. We went from what we had from November, correct?
We pulled in a few more in the...
But we didn't formally reopen the process.
No. I did it. No.
I got a lot of feedback in a negative manner that we didn't reopen the process, that we should have done more interviews and let more applicants come in because November was a long time ago. And we don't know if anybody could have come forward.
Well, I think, if I may, it's important that the advertising actually took place, I forget the exact dates, but it was more February into early March
Yeah.
than November, but still.
I also spoke with counsel on it, just in random briefing conversation. He had called and asked me about how the interviews went and all that, and I voiced the same. We wish we would have had people with a little bit more TA experience, but this is what we had. He asked if we opened the process. I said no. He said from his perspective, he would have wished that we would have reopened the interview process for 10 days, see what came in, still leave these candidates, we interviewed them, but see if any more were to come forward.
For 10 days?
Yeah, it's the length you have to open it for a minimum of 10 days. So we could do 2 weeks, but he said we have to open it for a minimum of 10 days.
I mean, Bernie, if I may, in your experience, is that typical or normal or?
I'm not aware of a 10-day requirement. You can repost the position, but I mean, I wouldn't. 10 days seems very it seems very short. I don't know what you necessarily get from that. You could post on the MMA for another probably for another period of time.
2 weeks or?
You could do just a couple weeks, something like that.
Have you seen any turnover recently, Bernie, at all in TA staff or in the area? Or?
Not in this area, really. No. No. I mean, I can't say that you won't get people. It's possible that someone out there might decide to jump in at that point. On the other hand, you may lose the candidates you have.
Right.
That's a trade-off that you have.
Right.
So
Did you ever hear from them on when everybody wanted to be able to start?
I think everybody can start like early July.
Still a couple weeks out.
I mean, it's tempting to keep fishing, but like Bernie says, you run the risk of losing the fish you have.
Yeah, or we run the potential of getting somebody who has more qualifications.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, it could go either way. I just want to make sure that we exhausted all options and that we're not just knee-jerk reaction picking somebody because we need somebody. I know it hasn't been easy to do what we've been doing here since Charlie left, but I also would hate to jump because we don't want to give it 2 more weeks and then end up with somebody that in a couple of months we go, ooh, I really wish we would have reopened that process.
So you had said that you had other candidates brought in though. So where did they come from?
We try to keep our ear to the ground of people who, we lost candidates during this process. And because of that, we keep our eyes, we've got Halifax is still open, Halifax is open, and we pull people in that way. But there really isn't anyone that has popped up since then that, other than the ones that, Heather is one. Heather came in late.
Okay.
So that's the one that you have that came in late. We reached out to probably another 8 to 10 people to ask them if they were interested, and there was very little interest. I won't say there was no interest, but it wasn't anything that was.
But if we were to advertise again, we might be able to hook some of those people.
Again, I can't say, I'm being honest with you, I can't say that you won't get something. But, one of the issues you have, we were just talking about it in the room before the meeting started, is geography. Where are you pulling from? People, for the salary you're listing, to get someone that's been a town administrator, if that's what you're looking for, someone that's been a town administrator or an assistant town administrator, there aren't that many assistants out there. In this region, most of the positions have turned over. The two communities that come immediately to mind that have assistants that might have been interested, and I'll leave it at that, are the assistant from Plymouth. She's now in Bourne, and the assistant from Bourne, who's now in Rochester. I'm trying to think of the other assistants in the area that might be interested, and there isn't much. And then in terms of town administrators that are interested in moving, part of the problem you have is that you really are an entry-level town administrator position. Who around here is going to move? You might get a department head, you might get a finance person, you might get a planner, but they won't have been a town administrator. Which you do have a town administrator, albeit she's only been in the position for a couple of years.
And she's only part-time.
And only part-time, but, but other than that, the town of Somerset they're paying, they're not close, but they're not that far. My understanding is, and we were involved in that one, they have had they've had their two finalists withdraw. And they're down to I don't know who they end up with now. But that's the market.
Sure.
Over the last, and I think I may have mentioned this last week, over the last 5 or 6 years, 2/3 of the communities in Massachusetts have turned over their town administrators, town managers.
It's a shocking amount.
It is.
Like every job is like that right now.
I know.
Right. And I raised the geography because that's where people people are going to be, in the greater Halifax area.
Geographical.
They'd say, okay, where am I going to, where will I take a job? And so that's what you're up against. And so that's why we're now looking at, in many cases, we're looking at sort of non-traditional candidates. It always goes back to, as I've talked to people about this in various places. Back in the 80s when these positions were new, people didn't have, that was when Massachusetts started to professionalize their local government. Communities would look and say, okay, let's hire a town administrator. And they would look to planners, finance people, DPW people, people like that they would move into these positions. They didn't, because there were no town administrators around. All those town administrators that were hired back in the 1980s that came from those backgrounds are now retired. And hence where we are today. And there just hasn't been a good, and it's hard to have we're a great feeder system with a lot of these small towns, because it's hard for many communities to justify to themselves hiring an assistant who could be trained to move up. That would be the ideal. If Halifax had an assistant, that you could say, okay, let's move this person up into the position. They don't exist.
We posted for the fire chief.
What's that?
We posted for the fire chief. We used our website. We used some internal things. How many applicants have we gotten?
So far, we have 5 candidates, I believe, for the fire
And we
chief.
posted last week.
Yep.
We didn't even post the town administrator to our website.
The fire chief was on Jason put it on like a statewide fire personnel.
Fire, yeah.
Yeah, but we didn't even post RTA to our own website or anything local for us.
You didn't post the town administrator? No, you probably didn't. We posted it to the MMA, and we circulated it to our database, which is all of the town administrators, assistant town administrators in the state, which is about 300, 350 people.
Yeah, but those are people currently working, right?
They're the town administrators that you're
Right.
trying to get.
So not people who could have been town administrator and took time off or anything of that nature. Like they have to be actually active working the job to be in that, right?
Oh, no, they could be in transition. They could be in transition.
Yeah, I just assumed as part of Bernie Services that we tapped into his network and that was a wider network than our network. Maybe that's just the new selectman talking, but I thought that's
I
what.
mean, I thought we advertised differently, but I wasn't in charge of that at the time. So to look back now and realize we didn't use certain avenues, I didn't realize we didn't. Not your fault.
No, no,
I'm just
no.
saying the previous board, I thought we were advertising in other manners and we weren't. So
You advertise in the primary method, which is
The traditional
the
method.
MMA website. That's where everybody looks that wants to work in municipal government in Massachusetts. And then we, on top of that, circulated it to, all of the town managers, town administrators, assistants that are out there, circulated it out to other people that are built into our database, those that have gone through the local government certificate program, through the municipal association at Suffolk University, that we know are looking. So.
Do you know, Bernie, if there are any similar positions out there that we could possibly lose our candidates to? Not to speak to what other avenues they're pursuing, but is that a realistic possibility that a position similar to ours is out there that if we do extend our window?
Depending upon what Somerset does. I don't know if you necessarily lose your people. You might lose one that you might lose. But you probably won't. Somerset, I don't know what they're going to do. If they'll go to number 3 or 4. Raynham just wasn't able to come up with a candidate. So they're out looking again, from what I understand. In this area, Middleborough is going to be opening up. That's a large community. But I don't think, you don't know. What
Right.
your-
No, it's hard to have you predict.
I don't know, yeah. I don't want
Yeah.
to say anything about it.
Sure.
But other communities in the area, none come to mind other than those.
Okay.
So,
I guess that's how I feel about it. So it's up to you, Alex.
So you want to reopen the candidacy for 10 days and put it on our website?
Well, and have Bernie reopen it on his end, not just see what is ear to the ground, like to reopen it in general for everybody, see if he gets any more, see if we get anything internal.
Can I ask you, Bernie, would that be an additional cost with our services with you?
no. Yeah, your additional cost would be the added cost of advertising on the MMA.
Sure.
That'll be $225.
Okay.
225, is that what you said?
Yeah.
I think that's what your ad cost is, 225 or 250, and 225 or 300. But I think that's, I mean, I will tell you, we didn't advertise in the ICMA, International City and County Management Association.
Because is that a realistic draw? Are we getting international candidates?
Well, it's the national organization, and but everyone in Massachusetts would get there gets it from the MMA.
Sure.
We did have
Our last
a
administrator
couple.
was from Rhode Island.
We did have someone from Rhode Island that was one of your people ready to come in, and because of the delay, we had to. He found another position. And people from Rhode Island looked at the MMA as well.
So they don't use that one. Wouldn't make sense.
They use their own. We can advertise there. It could be a little bit, $200 for that.
I've just seen a lot of towns, and I've talked to other selectmen at other places that kind of get stuck where we are. They appoint somebody because they need somebody, and then they kick themselves if they have a contract with somebody or that they didn't search a little bit harder, that's all.
Sure.
So, I mean, look, this has been a very long process. If you're interested in trying to do this again, we'll certainly.
When did it close, Bernie? Sorry.
Well, it closed back in. I did bring it.
You're right, sure, it's okay.
It closed, I believe, back
February
in
something.
February. At the end of February, the beginning of March, and then we sort of kept it open in terms of because people go to our website.
Sure.
And they find it.
Yeah.
And at some point along the way, we did pull it down, but it sits there for a long period of time. And we try to put people in that way. But, we can certainly, we sort of continue working with you and put it back out, see what comes up. The other challenge that you do have, I'll tell you, is, I shouldn't say challenge, is the way that we were asked to handle this was similar to the way we've handled it in a few other communities, like Rochester, like Dayton, is you left it in our hands in terms of you get the candidates and bring them into us, which is what we did. Given the board, what I'm sort of hearing from the board is, if we go back out, my one concern is I don't want you to think that, we're not bringing you people. We show everything to a screening committee. We have a screening committee. If we don't have a screening committee, I can't really give it to you because it breaks confidentiality because it gets a public record. So you'll have to. Well, we can go out. We can see what we have, and I can bring you anyone I get, and that looks good. Or tell them, look, I'm going to bring you in if you're willing to put your name out there. But people have to be willing to put their name out.
Sure.
So,
That's a tough call.
yeah.
So, I guess, timeline-wise, then, it's already June 8th. I know Ed has a lot of 4th of July plans already. We'd be looking for 2 weeks.
Yeah, you'd probably be looking, if you put it back out, I mean, we could put an ad out tonight for the MMA, through the MMA, you can post it up on your website, and then we can, 2 weeks out from today is
22nd.
22nd.
Today.
Then we can review them, and then try to bring you in. But I guess I need to hear from you what you're looking for, exactly.
Well, I think it's
If you're
important.
looking for, so for instance, we had a it comes immediately to mind. We did have a candidate that's a fire chief in another community. Now, he doesn't have the background of doing municipal budgets. He doesn't have the procurement experience. He doesn't have the, he's
He's fire chief.
fire chief.
Yeah.
People like, I need to know specifically what are we looking for? Are we looking for a town administrator? Someone who's been a town administrator or an assistant town administrator? Is that what we're looking for? And to delve further into it, is an assistant town administrator good enough to do? If we got that.
I mean, an assistant town administrator would be better than nothing from the private sector. At least they have some type of town administrator experience or assisting a town administrator.
So I don't want to, I think the three candidates, I don't want to negatively speak on the three candidates, especially if one of them could be RPA. I thought they all had pluses to them. The things that I had kind of hoped we might find was a little bit more grant experience, and then certified proprietor.
For procurement.
Procurement, sorry,
Yeah.
certified procurement. And I don't know if those are unicorns right now, but those were kind of the two areas that I was hoping we might have candidates with a little bit more experience.
I mean, the MCPPO, that's I will say that's pretty common, that people don't necessarily have that when they go into
Okay.
positions. I mean, I have to tell you, and again, I don't want it to seem like I'm pushing back at you on
No.
this. I just want you to be realistic.
Please.
I was a manager for 30 years. I was never MCPPO.
Really? And we hired you?
He was never MCPPO.
No, really? Okay.
I will say,
Anybody there was.
would it be a fair statement, though, that I feel like in my, at least personal experience, in the last 15 years, the whole procurement process has been under a microscope. So I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I don't think that was as crucial 30 years ago.
No, but I mean, I was a manager during that period of time. Yeah. Oh, well, in the last, how many years did you go back? Did you go back?
30.
You said 30, right?
I'm back 30, but I stopped being a manager 8 years ago.
But I also feel like back then, like once you got your foot in there and you made a name for yourself, it wasn't as watched as it is now, you know?
Yeah, well, all I'm saying is, in most communities, it's a standard question we ask, how you MCPPO, and would you get that? I think one of your candidates has done the first part of that.
They're in the
Yeah, they're in the process. The other two said they were.
And the other one is, but it's pretty, I will tell you, it's pretty common
Okay.
that people that take these positions aren't necessarily to start with.
Sure.
So, but in terms of grant writing, that's,
Right.
I mean, to speak for myself, to answer your question, I would be fine with an assistant TA.
okay.
As would I.
Yeah, me too.
Okay.
I guess the other thing that's important to think of is, now it's June and town meetings have gone by and budgets have been voted on, and if there's a sour taste in anybody's mouth, or now would be the time, I guess. Someone's not happy in the position they're at
Sure.
because of recent town.
Recent town activities. Sure.
We'll open up some potential candidates.
So, I mean, it's possible, we'll certainly, this was a question that we sort of had during the process of whether we should, scrap the process or put it on hold. This decision was made by the town to put it on hold, come back, and we're now, it's easy enough though for us to put another ad out there and see what we get.
Sure.
But, and so there may be somebody, but you do have 3 candidates now that I can't guarantee where they'll be after this. So,
I don't know if you can answer this question or not, but how large of a pool did you, or how many people did you have to whittle down to 3?
wish I knew you were going to ask all these questions. If you bear with me, I can see if I can remember that.
I mean, I'm not going to
I
hold you
think
to the
you
answer.
remember somebody saying that we had it down to like 25 and then you had it
I
down
don't
to
know
3.
I don't know if you had 25.
That's how it was in February. Like when we closed everything in February, I think that's what we had had.
Yeah,
That's what I was told we had.
Yeah, that seems a little high, but I could be. We're doing so many of these right now, and have been, that I can't recall that. But yeah, we can, stay with me for just 1 second here.
Sure.
You have, let's see. Actually, I put this. Yep, it is 25, because that's what I put in my letter to you. But you had in sort of the tier 1 category that, well, let's see. I'll tell you what you have from your tier 2. Let me do it that way. You have a veterans agent, a fire chief, a finance committee member, a community development director, someone from Texas.
Be fun.
There you go.
Finance Committee, Community Development Director, someone from Texas.
And someone-
He's a bit. I want to say
Going to
that.
where-
I want to say that he's.
That's his job.
He was a assistant city manager in a very small community in Texas for 3 years.
Yeah.
Large enough to be called a city, though.
Well,
I know. I'm
In Texas.
kidding.
down there.
That's
I'm
it.
kidding.
Down in Texas, look me up.
You have an environmental planner, and you have someone who's been out in the business for 20 some odd years, and he was never a manager. He was a finance person working for in the finance sector. Now he's been doing real estate. And then you get into the tier 3 category, which
So our tier 1 was our top.
Tier 1 was the 3 you brought in, right?
the 3 that I brought in and you lost during that period of time. 2 assistants, a town administrator, and then another person that's a finance director who withdrew even before that for personal reasons.
Yeah.
Again, where I wanted to go.
How open are you to increasing the salary?
Sandy?
Is the cupboard bare?
Well, sorry.
Go ahead.
What percentage do you think would be fair to draw more qualified applicants?
No guarantee,
I understand.
because you'd be, surprised that even if you threw another 20 out, it might not do it. But if you were up in the 140s to 150, you might get more. It's a real tough decision though, because you might end up with the same candidates.
Saying we just got money away.
Yeah.
Can't we like based on experience this ad?
Sliding scale?
Oh yeah, you can do that. I mean, you can do that, but
Oh, it's commensurate with experience.
yeah, that's what we. Even this we do,
Right.
depending on qualifications.
Sure.
I think your ad went out at 125 plus or minus, depending on qualifications.
I'm sorry, Sandy, I didn't mean to
No,
interrupt.
no, that's fine.
So
I'm trying to figure out how we would do that.
Yeah.
I think we would, yeah, I think a little, that's
But look
the
at-
contract level.
I'm happy what we can do is we can do a sort of a partial billing for what we've done now, and then for the firm, and then put it back out on the street. We can do that tonight.
I'm receptive to the idea as long as I feel like we have to put a line in the sand here.
As far as a date or as far as
Yeah.
extending? Yeah. I feel like to draw the analogy, and I don't know if it's a good one, it's we put our house on the market and then we took it off for a while and now we're putting it back on. So we might get new eyeballs, whereas, but we might lose again.
Yeah, and if,
guaranteed.
right. But I think though, but I do think, there may be a couple, but I think if we get anything, it's probably going to be the best you'll probably get is department heads, which is okay. I think that's okay.
We have some pretty good department heads, so I'd be okay.
We do. We get some rock star.
Oh yeah. But that's what you
What
do.
we'll be looking, the scope of what we're looking at.
Yeah.
All right, so what are you proposing? 2 weeks?
Me?
Yeah.
From what I heard from councils, we just had a minimum of 10 days. 10
Is
days
that-
brings us to a Saturday though. So if you want to do 2 weeks, we can do 2 weeks. which is the
Is that-
22nd.
Yeah, we can do that. We can have it come up.
And we have
on the 22nd.
and we have a meeting on the 28th.
Yeah, the 23rd we have a meeting, but we're not doing any of this on that because that's our appointment process meeting.
Yeah, no, that's going to
And
be.
then we have a meeting on the 28th, yes,
Yeah.
where we don't have a ton on that agenda right now, so we could bring in interviews that night.
Well, I mean, let's, you're getting a little too, you know, from,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, because
But
they
we
come in
can
on the
bring
22nd, then if you want us to vet these people in any way,
Sure.
then
It's going to take a while.
it takes a little bit of time.
Bounce it back to the 20th, and that gives you that whole week. Because that's our minimum of, we hit our minimum of 10 days if we do it tonight.
I mean, we can do that. I'll have to be in touch when we can get it here.
Yeah.
Because
What's a
there's other schedules at play here. And you're getting into the vacation period, not so much for me, but for the candidates.
It's a reasonable amount of time for you, Bernie.
Probably 2 weeks at least. But then again, it depends on calendars of other clients that are already on the books.
It's already July.
But look, I think at this point you almost,
We've already come this long and this far.
yeah, it's,
How you doing, Ed?
I don't know why,
Sandy, did you have something to add?
Well, I was going to say, if he took 2 weeks, so you put the ad out there for 2 weeks, then he takes 2 weeks
That's
to
a
look
month.
at everything. You have a meeting in July, so your meetings are usually the second and fourth Tuesday. So you have a meeting in July on the 12th. You could plan to schedule, no?
Could you do that?
Don't get me on, you can't get me on the 12th, I'm in Brookline.
All right, so we're already on the 12th. So
Or
then
we-
we have to get possibly the,
Or we do another special meeting like we did last week and do it like
Yeah.
Wednesday night,
Yeah.
which I'm open to. It's up to you guys.
I can be here if we need to be here.
Why don't we do this? The key thing right now is let's get it advertised. Let's get it posted up, see what we get,
Oh,
if that's what you want.
so we're looking at 10 days or 2 weeks?
Well, if you say it's...
I guess it doesn't matter
If
at
you
that
want
point,
this
right?
minimum of 10 days, I've never, but
That seems
it
small.
might be a local bylaw or
So can I
something.
just say something? I think the 10 days was when the town is posting for their jobs. It was set,
That's what I was
it may
gonna
be
say.
one of our bylaws, that when we post a job or an unwritten bylaw,
Has to
that
be
has to
10
be
days.
posted for 10 days.
That's
And
just what
that's always been, it used to be 5, but it was changed in the bylaw, and that's what would happen.
Probably for internal
We never really did
posting.
just internal, we would get it, and then it went out.
Because the
And
lawyer told me that, so.
our bylaw was under wage of personnel, everything was 5 days, and Charlie always insisted on more days, so that when he insisted on the more days, the bylaw was changed to reflect those more
Yeah,
days.
okay, that's what I was thinking. It's not, when initially it sounded like it might be state law or
So
something. I
it's a
never
wage
heard
of
that, so I was thinking it
personnel,
was
it's a wage of
for
personnel
bylaw.
thing here.
All right, so thank you, Robert. I want to be clear on this. So we're going to open it June 8th.
Tonight.
You want it for 2 weeks, which is June 22nd. Bernie can't do July 12th. So you're proposing the 11th or the 13th?
Bernie?
To do interviews?
Yeah, how are you that week, Bernie?
You have a whole long weekend in there, you're not gonna get people to come in.
I have a question for you. How much do you need in terms of, when we, like, for these people, what we did is we went through an interview process. I had people doing interviews with these people.
Yeah.
And then, once we narrowed it down, then we did contacted references.
Well,
And that's, again, I said that there's no additional fee
Right.
with this, but, I mean, we're basically redoing all that work.
and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what I'm hearing, though, is we're not going to get another 25 people in 2 weeks.
No, I don't think so.
So I understand what you're saying, but if we get 2 or 3,
Yeah.
an interview, contacting references, you're not reaching out to 70, 80 people.
Oh, no.
So do you think 3 weeks is reasonable?
3 weeks for,
So if we close it on the 22nd, 3 weeks is July 13th,
yeah, we'll get something for you for that.
and you're available on the 13th.
I'm looking now. I can do the 13th.
All right. And Ashley, you want to put it on the town website?
I do. Caesar's listening to us, so I'll make sure he does it.
And any applications that come into the town website will be sent to Bernie?
I would think that you put on the town website the position announcement, which directs them to me anyway.
Yeah.
So we're not creating an email address or anything
No.
like that? We're not creating a special committee?
No.
We'll funnel it to him.
It'll just, the posting will simply say, send to apply@communityparadigm.com. I'll look at them and I'll bring you what I have, that we can recommend to you.
Yep.
Sure.
And we'll contact their references, and it may not be quite as robust a report that you had this time.
I understand. Ed, are you okay working with us for another 6 weeks?
Well, let me jump in for Ed. You're probably talking somewhere closer to 8 weeks, maybe 10.
No, I understand, but when we interviewed these candidates, we were under the impression it would be the beginning of July.
Right.
So I would assume Ed would think that 2 or 3 week buffer is still going to be there on the back end. So we're extending the process.
So if it goes to the 13th, and then there's a month-long notice.
Right.
I'm looking at probably mid-August.
It's June 8th, we're talking about July 13th.
Right.
So the way I'm looking at it is we're extending this whole thing by 5 to 6 weeks.
Right.
I'll do whatever helps the town.
I'm not going to get rid of us that easy, Ed.
I mean, I've been here 7 months, so I mean, what's another?
All right. I get it. In the interest of doing what's best for the town, I'm okay with seeing what else is out there.
Jonathan?
Yeah.
I'm really going to have some remorse if we're sitting here on July 13th and now we're down to 2
Now we're down
candidates.
to 2 candidates, which is the
We
role
can
of
pick one of the
the
3 we have.
if there's
No, I'm saying if one of the 3 we have
is
Right.
gone.
is gone.
But I'm just saying there's also the option to not extend it. Just because I feel that way doesn't mean you guys have to feel that way. It's a 3-member board. You guys can decide to pick one of the 3 that we have now.
What do you think, John?
It's tough. It's tough. I mean, again, I don't want to speak poorly of our candidates because I think they're all qualified candidates. Was there a candidate that checked all the boxes and was a slam dunk? In my opinion, no. But who's to say the people we bring in are going to check all our boxes? So you're rolling, you're rolling the dice. But let's say we find someone that does. So I don't know. You can play the what if game forever.
Is there, let me ask you about naming names. Are there any candidates that anyone here is aware of that would be referred to me that I would reach out to?
No.
No,
Not for me.
not that I've found.
Okay.
I'll be honest with you, I haven't been doing a search behind your back.
That's why we pay you the big money. Lynch.
But we can start
Yeah,
that
we
over the
wanna
next 2
retain it.
weeks. I'll let you know.
We'll give a bonus to
That's it.
people. Find this fee. No, but I mean, if there are people that, certainly that
Sure.
that has happened before, that people have said, hey, I heard so-and-so.
We do have a mole in the Pembroke Fire Department now, though.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
So, yeah. But yeah,
Yeah, I guess I could see reopening.
I guess I have one more question, and I don't know if you can answer this or not. Of the 3 candidates that came in and interviewed with us, do you know if they're waiting on a decision from us tonight to accept an offer from somewhere else?
no. I don't, not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Not that I'm aware of, no. So, I think they're all waiting on a decision from you tonight to know
To
whether
move
they
forward.
received it.
Sure.
They were all very anxious to see what your decision was because they were
Yeah.
very interested in
I'll go to Somerset.
coming to the
They
town.
live closer.
Yeah.
And I'm sure if we reopen, it would not put a good taste in your mouth.
Yeah, and yeah.
They'll go to Somerset. They live closer.
Paying a lot more money too.
Yeah, there you go.
What is Somerset paying?
I think it was 70.
Oh,
Go to Somerset.
Wow.
Do they need selectmen?
They keep it there. And you guys.
I believe that's what was advertised. Yep.
All right. Who's making the motion? It's like taking castor oil here.
You don't have to agree.
No, I know,
That's
but
my feeling.
You're right. The feedback I've gotten from town has been that they wish that there was someone with more experience.
Right.
But is that person out there?
I don't know.
That's the $64 million question.
Oh, it's apparently
The
100.
$125,000
Plus or minus the question.
plus or minus on the scale.
Yeah, it's a problem what communities are running into, is there's just not, I mean, the whole, if you read, and I'm aware of it because I'm quoted in it, but Commonwealth Magazine just put something out on this.
Not that it matters with our situation, Bernie, but how common is this practice to resubmit, to repost?
I won't say it's highly, well, it happens. It isn't, it's relatively rare. Relatively rare. We've done it out of the 90 communities we've served, I think we've done it 3, 4 times.
And have you had a similar gap between closing and filling the spot? Ours was kind of a unique situation where we had our new board. Does that more kind of come into play more here?
We did have another community that had a similar situation. They lost 2 board members, 2 of their 3. And so they had to put their process on hold for 2 months until they had a new board. So very similar.
Sure.
And they lost, very similar, they lost 2 of their top candidates, and they fell to additional candidates that were brought in.
But they put on hold.
But, I want to be clear, the people that you have, other than Heather, who came in a little later, the other 2 were part of your original group.
Okay. Well, that's reassuring.
That is reassuring.
The other two people that were in that group, one was a department head in the city that impressed people in another community that they looked at. But that person has gone into the private sector. And then you had a town administrator who's taken a position out of state in planning and development.
Okay.
And so that's what you had. And so you have 2 of those, and then you add in the other.
So we're going to need a motion to either appoint one of the ones we have or to extend the process by 2 weeks.
What do you got, Alex?
Well, I guess if 2 of our 3 candidates have been waiting since February, I'd be okay with another 2 weeks. How do you feel about that?
So just if my timeline is correct, they would know 2 weeks from now we would be on the hook to make our decision.
No,
No.
July 13th.
No,
2 weeks
in
from
July.
now, we'll have our.
We got June 8th
we'll make-
today.
So they're going to have to wait another 5 weeks for our decision.
We'll know 2 weeks from now whether there's anybody else.
Or,
It may not be.
I was going to say,
That's
or
true.
by June 22nd, the
We don't
agenda
have
can
any
say,
additional-
yeah.
I was going to say, it's a hard, it's going to be a tough, but it's going to be, at this point, it's going to be a tough situation for anyone to come into. They're coming in with a big question mark on them.
Well, I don't understand what
Yeah, explain that, Bernie. I lost you.
He's saying whether they come in at the beginning of July or it takes another 5 weeks, that whoever the TA is going
Who-
to have their work cut out for them, and they're
Well,
gonna be
yeah.
like, they're gonna be, well,
These three candidates now have a question mark placed on them. And I guess it's here tonight, or it's, if 2 weeks from now, there's nobody that jumps out that comes in, then they still come in with that question mark of, they were at the top, you would have liked more.
Yeah.
Sure. I don't want to say consolation prize,
Yeah.
but that's kind of the vibe that they're going to have.
So with that being said, I guess we just do it. We just go out and see what we have. But I think we do so with the understanding that you probably, I don't want to speak for them, but you probably won't have them. Maybe you will. Again, this is all, I expected 15 minutes. We were all gonna
Come in and see who it is, right?
Right. So I don't know. I haven't talked to them and said, look, we can hang on for another.
Sure. Could you explain to them that because the process was done in February, and that we're now
we have a new board.
middle of June, and that we have a new board, that's kind of what our thinking is here.
That's exactly what I'm going to say to them, and that's what they're going to hear when they watch this tape,
Yeah,
because they've all watched the meeting from last week.
sure. All right, I'll make a motion to extend our window for our town administrator, posting it tonight, June 8th, and closing June 22nd.
I'll second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Thanks, Brendan.
I'll be in touch.
Thank you, Brian.
Second. All
Thank
right.
you.
Great. Thanks.
So the only other thing we have to talk about is the COVID leave policy.
Sure.
We made a policy back when COVID was a thing.
Blue paper? Thank you, Pam.
But behind it was like email from, just a question about, if they were going along with COVID and, what's covered and how they covered and what the state is doing and all that. And then we had a meeting, and what we did was we kind of came up with that vote from the first meeting. After a very long conversation.
Okay.
That was I think it was a couple of meetings.
Well, yeah, because
It was
that meeting
painful.
was very long, so I'm like, inside the meeting.
So the question was, will the employees, to summarize, will the employees get paid if they're out with COVID? How do they prove they have COVID? We said the home test didn't count. They could come to the fire station because the fire station was testing all the employees. And what if they have a family member that was out, like if a child was home with COVID, would they get paid for that? So at the time, Massachusetts was reimbursing us, I believe, to pay for people to be out with COVID. They're not doing that anymore. So the question is, are we as the town or the selectmen going to continue with the policy, or are we going to halt the policy now that the town isn't being reimbursed for the paid sick time?
Halt the policy. That's my takeaway.
Yeah, that's my takeaway too.
What's your take on that, Alex?
We don't,
As far
we
as-
no longer pay for the COVID.
I don't want to sound crass, and I care about the people that work for this town, but if we're not getting reimbursed for it, then it shouldn't be on our shoulders. If that's the state policy, then
And that's the majority policy throughout Massachusetts right now.
I don't know if that's the majority policy, but that would be our
Have
policy.
we looked into like what other towns do, or
No.
any ideas on what
They paid up until what, April 1st was it, or was it March something? I can't remember.
I
think it was the-
April, or
yeah.
the end of
I think it was the end of
something
March.
like that.
Okay, yeah.
So basically, it's do they use their own sick time
Sure.
or not? We've been letting them not use sick time if they tested positive for COVID.
but we're no longer getting reimbursed for that.
Right.
Right.
No, but I had people out in April, right? Pauline, she had to use all her sick time.
Did she?
Yes.
I use my sick time, yeah.
Yeah. We
So
had
why?
sick time.
We Yeah, I did get
Only
questioned.
because I thought that it was up in April, which was fine. I have.
Well, I thought it was too, but then we got questioned by other departments, and because we didn't have a firm policy from the board,
Right. So,
we didn't have, and that's what it's all about. It's the board saying, yes, now, if you get COVID, you're using your own sick time. But there's also the question of,
Wait, but why wasn't this a formal policy?
no, this is our formal policy right now.
No, but Sandy, you just said that because you didn't have a clear policy in April, people were unsure what to do about it. This is from
No,
January.
no, we had a policy in January, but what she's saying is in April, the state stopped reimbursing and we didn't do anything about it
We
on the
kept our
board.
policy the
So this
same.
policy's been the same,
Right.
even though the state
But
stopped.
they're town employees.
So she's saying because we didn't change the policy when the state did, I think is what you're saying, right? That's her confusion on it. That's why they're in front of us now. They want to know if we should continue following this since January 31st
But they
or,
were following in April.
Yeah, a lot of us were, I wasn't
So-
following
And
it.
I'm not saying that critically.
we didn't, so like if someone put sick time on their card, they weren't saying sick time, I was out with COVID. And we don't ask what they put their sick time on their card
Right,
for.
sure.
So if they put sick time on their card, but we've had a couple of cases where people questioned, do we have to use sick time because I was out with COVID? But also, we've had a couple of employees who were sent home because they're not vaccinated and because they were in close proximity with someone who had COVID. And now they're saying, why do I have to use my sick time
When you're
when
not
I'm not
sick.
sick
Right, sure.
and I'm being sent home? So that was more the majority of,
But
we
I
do
don't
have
think that's
the
the
one or
policy
two
anymore
people
either.
who don't like to use their sick time when they're, but like Pam put on sick time, Jean said, you know, Holly did.
I had, yeah.
I didn't even know
had
it was
two
still a
employees.
question until I think it was last pay period when
And
we got
actually, Holly
questioned.
ran out of sick time, and she had to use her personal time and some vacation time.
Yeah.
She was very sick, and I think I may have asked, or I may have thought or been told that
Yeah.
that policy was only until April 1st. So when she just came down with it, like, she ran through her sick time because she was very sick. And, you know, so now I feel like, you know, she should be reimbursed some of that sick time. You know, if other people were getting sick time and I was told that Polly had to take her,
well, who,
you know, I mean, when,
as far as I'm concerned, this was our policy from July 31st till today because we didn't change it otherwise.
I can see the argument, though, that town employees, if they're seeing something being handed down from the state level, that they're going to assume.
yeah, but that stopped on April 1st. So after April 1st, I was under the impression, and I don't remember specifically who told me, that we had to take sick time, that we were no longer being reimbursed.
No, but our policy starting in January says that you get 40 hours of reimbursed sick time if you test positive for COVID.
And that, well, what was that, April 1st?
And June 2nd was when the board was sent an email about the policy.
That was when the state stopped reimbursing it.
Right, but I'll have to go back because I know I asked, and we may have gotten like some type of something, because I would have, I think I asked for.
I would be curious to know what you have. I mean, I've only been here for 3 weeks,
Right,
but I'd
right,
be curious to know what you
right.
have.
Because I know she ran out of her sick time, she ended up
Yeah,
taking
yeah.
personal, and then,
Because I agree with you.
wait a minute, was it, you could only take a certain amount of
It's up
sick time?
to 40 hours.
Up to 40 hours.
40.
Okay. All right, I'll have to go, I'm gonna
So
go back and look.
that's per person. So what we're having too is
Right.
people are exposed, they stay home, and they don't take this sick time, so they use up their hours, and
Thanks,
we've
Pam.
had a lot of different
I haven't
scenarios.
seen up there.
We've been doing the best we can as far as enforcing different things.
Yeah, so it is
So
April
just-
1st.
Yeah,
Right.
if you just say, all right, from now on, if you have COVID, you use your sick time. And then if you say, if your department head sends you home, what do we do? So department head sends you home because maybe you have a cold, don't have COVID, you're sent home because you're not vaccinated, you've been in close proximity with someone who has COVID,
Yeah, but I don't think that's
Do
a
we
rule
need
anymore.
them?
That, I don't believe that's a rule anymore. We're gonna have
If
to talk to Bob about that.
if you're not
Yeah,
vaccinated,
the vaccination stats changed a lot
it's
of
the
it. Let me,
vaccination
Not at the
status.
schools. The schools aren't keeping the distance. They're not being sent home or tested or anything.
I'm gonna check
with the
the
kids.
CDC because it
Yeah.
changes.
They don't do the 6 feet anymore.
I know that Bob told me one time when I asked, he said, you're vaccinated, don't worry, you're not, you can't be.
I would like to know the real from Bob, the real situation. Like what did they say?
Quarantine.
So he gave me a pamphlet like that big.
Did you highlight and take notes and put notes?
I put it on my pile and I'm ready with everything else.
It's over here. For like
Still have it.
tomorrow problem.
That policy says up to 40 hours.
Yes.
Yes.
So maybe that's what I'm thinking.
Let's double check it.
Okay, I definitely will.
All right. Because I don't want to treat one employee different than.
It said-
No, they all have to be treated the same.
That's
Yeah.
absolutely.
So CDC says, if you were exposed to COVID-19 and are not up to date on your COVID-19 vaccinations, you have to stay home and quarantine for at least 5 full days. You have to get tested, even if you don't develop symptoms, at least 5 days after you last had close contact. And then you're supposed to watch for symptoms until 10 days after you last had your close
We're
contact.
not even supposed to ask people if they're vaccinated.
Well, that's a whole different conversation. HIPAA went out the window as soon as it got called a pandemic.
So we have department heads who know who's vaccinated and who isn't. So, I mean, we're not asking, believe me.
Yeah.
We're just trying to keep track of leave time.
I personally believe that if the town is not getting reimbursed by the state, and I'm sure people are not going to like this opinion, but I don't think we should be paying them
That is also my
without
opinion.
not charging them sick time.
Sure.
I'm sorry, it's a pandemic, I understand. If you're home because you're sick, that's why you get sick time.
But I mean, how long do we do this whole pandemic thing too? So I also.
And then what about people that are close contact?
I know that was tough.
That's hard because that's no fault of their own.
I
Not that anybody
feel-
has fault,
no,
you know,
I
but
feel
you know what I
it's
mean.
different if the department head says, go home. That's just my feeling, because if your department head sends you home, it's not that you're unwilling to work. And if you have, get it or not get it,
But then it's like, are you really sick? Because I had to send Holly home one day because she was really worried about her sick time. And I said, but you're really sick, I can't have you here.
Right.
So you have to, she wanted to go home, but she only came in because she was worried about her sick time.
Sure.
But then I had
So
to
then
say,
she
you have to go
exposes the whole
home.
library.
I'm like, well, worry about your time later.
Right.
So,
Or you could have the other situation where, let's say they are close contact, but they don't have any time left. And
Right.
they roll the dice and they show up at work when maybe they shouldn't.
exactly.
So that's tough.
I truly see both sides of it. I'm not
Yeah.
trying to sound crass.
No, yeah.
I see both sides of it too, but I also see the financial side of the town not being reimbursed anymore and how much we can keep footing the bill.
right. And I will say most people have sick time,
Right.
but there are a few people who have used a lot of sick time.
To me, the differentiation is between close contact and being sick. If you show up to work sick and you're physically ill and your department head has to send you home, you shouldn't be at work. You should be using your sick time. That's my opinion.
Sure. And if they have none left? They have none left.
You've
Sorry.
already left.
Yeah.
That's how it works in the real world.
I mean, I let them come in, make up time, which she generally doesn't work on a Tuesday, but when you're feeling better, come in on that Tuesday or something like that, but I didn't know other people would get
Flexibility.
but she did use her 40 hours when she was
Right.
sick.
And it says on it that the board unanimously voted for the Town of Halifax will cap the number of hours used reimbursed by employees for COVID at 40, with the exception of firefighters who will be reimbursed 48 hours. And it fell in line with the EPSL in Massachusetts, which they're not doing that anymore.
The close contact is the hitch for me. Because if you don't have COVID, even though if you're within 6 feet of somebody for 15 minutes or more, and you get sent home because you're close contact, and 5 days later, you're not out of it, but you're 5 days later on sick time, and you never had it to begin with.
Sure.
I mean, who
I'd
gets
be
to pick close
pretty-
contact? I mean, let's be real, we're in close contact with COVID every day. Every day. We go to the grocery store, we have kids in the school, we have grandkids in the school.
Are you proposing a mask mandate again?
Nope. I'm saying it's time to build that immunity and let's move on.
I make a motion
We would have to rescind this policy.
I make a motion to rescind the COVID policy dated January 31st, 2022, and no longer reimburse sick time for a COVID-19 positive test. No.
Hold on, we have to reword that because then it's gonna fall into, well, what if we're a close contact? What if this? So not just a COVID positive test, it would just be no longer reimburse any COVID-related sick time,
Absentee.
absences.
Yes,
Okay, so we're going
Sorry, Pam.
no longer reimbursed, would you just say COVID,
Any COVID-related sick time
COVID-related?
Absence.
or absences. Works here. We're in school.
so moved.
You motioned it, so
I know,
need a
but
second.
you cleaned it up.
Like your motion.
So, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's all we had.
I know people are going to be upset, but eventually we need to move on with our lives.
Something you're gonna learn on this board is you can't please everybody. and
Oh, I'm well
half the
aware
people
of
are
that.
always gonna be upset with you, so it's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. Anybody have anything else? That's the end of the agenda. Our next meeting is the 14th at 5:30. We have to push it back 15 minutes.
Wasn't there a fire chief meeting there somewhere?
Not to
No.
we.
No?
Not to that meeting.
Oh, the 14th is already next
14th
Tuesday.
is already,
Yes.
it's
It's still
fine.
like 2 weeks out of my head.
Yeah,
It's
no,
not
it's,
that.
Yep.
When are you gonna be notifying, because I put on that I wanted to be on that search committee?
14th. 14th,
You're
we're
gonna
gonna.
notify us?
Yep, yep. Part of that agenda is we'll bring in our list of, I believe we have 6 candidates so far for the citizen at large, so we'll bring our list in and select our person then.
So who's on the committee? Who's the committee?
It's myself, it's our police chief, it's Ed, who we just can't let go of.
We just can't start giving us stuff to do.
And our interim fire chief.
It's your infectious personality out there.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a good crew, very handsome crew.
You'll fit right in, Gene.
Thanks.
All right,
All right.
so motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.